Would you agree if your kid, you should get 50-50 custody?
It depends.
Off the bat.
It depends.
Off
Well,
the
I
bat.
actually don't agree with that.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a lot of problems with the way that divorce is handled, etc. I mean, I know people who, someone who was married for a couple of years.
Under the age of 8. Over the age of 8, the kids have better outcomes with the father. Single father homes have significantly better outcomes than single.
Under the age of 8, though, they need the mother.
So you genuinely believe that women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
Well, okay. I'm gonna caveat this.
Okay.
I don't think it's likely this will ever happen.
Yeah.
I'm
we can
never
agree on
really
that.
gonna campaign for this to happen. Like, how could nowadays? However, I think the outcomes would be better.
Okay.
And now this goes back into the documentary that I'm making. So I'm making a documentary on the court system here in the UK. I wish I brought my notebook because I have it all laid out in my note. I should have brought my notebook. I didn't. But the issue in the UK is that men only get custody of their kids 10% of the time. Would you agree that's crazy?
Yes.
Would you agree if your kid, you should get 50-50 custody?
It depends.
Off the bat.
It depends.
Off
Well,
the
I
bat.
actually don't agree with that.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'll tell you why I don't agree with it. And this will make me very problematic because I am suggesting that men and women are different. But as someone who has a young child, they're way better off with their mother on average.
Under the age of 8. Over the age of 8, the kids have better outcomes with the father. Single father homes have significantly better outcomes than single.
Under the age of 8, though, they need the mother.
True.
But it's all case specific because if the mother is a psycho, then no. And if the father is abusive, then no, right?
Or has addiction issues or whatever else.
I personally think that it's 50-50. It's 50% his DNA. He should, off the bat, be entitled to 50-50 custody. Now, they could talk about it based on his work schedule and then switch it, but off the bat, 50-50 custody. Would you agree that 10% of the time, men getting access to their children being the primary custody hold, like that's insane.
There's a lot of problems with the way that divorce is handled, etc. I mean, I know people who, someone who was married for a couple of years, they were both professional people working. Her career and income were not in any way affected. And then they divorced after a couple of years and she got a shit ton of his money for no fucking reason.
Yeah, I'll tell you about this guy that I interviewed yesterday, and it's going to tie into the voting thing, but it's just going to take a second. So he has 3 daughters, okay? 3. And he was married to a good girl for 10 years. She was like of a Muslim background, so they had like the same, does that make sense? Same background.
Yeah, of course.
The marriage ended, right? And all of a sudden there was a restraining order put out against him and an allegation of abuse. Why was there allegations of abuse? Because in the UK, you get free lawyers if you claim that the man abused you. So now he has to pay for a house that's not his. Okay, so he has to, because the house is in his name, and he's kicked out of the house because of the restraining order. He doesn't have access to his kids, and on top of that, he has to pay child support every month. He loses his job because he's homeless now. Loses his job, he doesn't have access to his kids because he's working in like electricity or something. And it's like a very high stress job, and like you can't have a guy that's
who's not focused.
So he loses his job. Now his option is he goes to the lawyers, right? And the lawyers, he has 2 choices. He can either accept the restraining order and accept and plead guilty basically to abuse, or he can pay 20 to 30,000 pounds and fight for his kids. And the odds he gets his kids is 10%. And this time the mom is no longer letting him see the kids. They're a mile away from him, 3 daughters. He hasn't seen them in a year and a half. So what happens next? He tries to fight. Now he's broke and he goes to court. And the problem is these girls go to women's shelters. And at the women's shelters, they basically know the system of how to get the most money and the most time with the kids, right? And the other issue with the lawyers is that because they get free counsel from the women's shelter, what incentive do they have to really help the guy? I mean, their number 1 clients are women. So a lot of these men are given bad advice in court. So now it takes him a year and a half to even be able to fight the restraining order, to even get a chance to get access to his children. Like and remember, just 1 phone call. You can't go home. You don't have your kids. So then he tries to fight it. Now he's still in court over the whole thing, right? But this is where a lot of men commit suicide. I certainly would think about it if I was in that situation where they took out, and he's in his 40s and 50s. It's not like he's a young guy. I mean, how old are you guys?
40.
40. So you can imagine everything being, like your business being taken, your house being taken, your kids being taken tomorrow. Now, the question is, why is this legal for her to do this? There's no repercussion. Like, isn't that a fair question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like why is it legal for her to deny access to the kids with no legal repercussion? Oh, actually, let me get through it. So let's say he gets his kids. Let's say he gets to court, he fights it, he wins, and if he doesn't get primary custody, which he only could get 10% of the time, so most likely he loses, spends all this money in all this debt, still paying for his old house. He could get his kids 6 days a month. Finally, the court gives him his kids. She can just do it all over again. She can just file another restraining order. It takes him a year and a half. The other issue, it takes, what happens to 2 years without seeing your kids? It's a different child. You don't know what she's been telling the kid. They might not even want to see you after 2 years. Why is this legal? Like, why? Why on earth? And that's my question. Like, why on earth is this legal? Like, this is an atrocity. I started asking my Uber drivers. There are so many Uber drivers that I've had that talked about how they're Ubering because their ex-wife screwed them over in divorce. So why is this happening? Family court, okay? It's not based on if you're guilty or if you're innocent. It's based on a balance of probabilities. So you can accuse someone of something with no evidence and no repercussions. And again, the women's group comes in with all their lawyers. The man comes in broke. He comes in with nothing. Half the time he can't even defend himself. And if he does, again, $20,000 to $30,000, the lawyers do not have his best interest at heart. Now let's say he gets lucky, right? He wins, he gets the kids for 6 days a month. What happens? She can do it over again. And it's legal because the politicians pander to women, because the biggest swing voting group is women. And what incentive do the men have, do the politicians have to change the laws when they're not going to be reelected? And that's happening right in front of our eyes.
And what do you think should happen instead?
It should be 50-50 custody off the bat. I think they should not have free counsel just like for abuse, because it went up 200, allegations of abuse went up 200% in 2013 when they switched that law in the UK. So I think that it should be 50-50 custody off the bat. And I don't, in terms of restraining orders, I don't think it should be that easy to just get a restraining order against a guy. But the problem is in the courts too, is that it's based on, you only have to convince one judge. And we're in a society where if a woman cries and is saying, oh, he abused me, he did this, we just automatically believe them. I mean, when's the last time a girl said to you or anyone in a room that they were raped, they were assaulted, they were anything, and anyone really asked questions? And I didn't. When I first started the show, I just openly believed women. But then you start asking questions and shit doesn't add up. And a lot of times at these women's shelters, they're instructing the women with what to say to get the most money out of the men. And oftentimes that's accusing them of abuse. So, the idea that like, there are repercussions for women voting, and a lot of times it's at the expense of men because all of the politicians are catering to the women because they are the biggest swing voting group.
Wouldn't
No.
I mean, there's a lot of counter arguments to what you're saying, but wouldn't one of them be that we lived in a society in which, because men were the ones that had the vote, and by the way, actually men mostly didn't have the vote for quite a long time as well. It was just rich men, but.
I would be okay with that too.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
But
I just feel like, why do you get a say in something you're not paying into? Men pay into it way more than women do.
I mean, women now earn more, particularly young women, than young men.
Yeah, but on average across society, men pay way more tax, particularly over the course of a lifetime. Partly it's because women take time to have children. And I mean, that's also another argument there. Like, you can't just measure your contribution to society by the amount of tax you pay. Bringing up the next generation is a hugely valuable thing that women do. They're not paid for it necessarily, right?
But shouldn't those women do that with their husbands?
How do you mean?
Like, why do we want to be in, you should have the same opinions. You should be voting for the same person as your husband.
Why?
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 He's got a lefty girlfriend who annoys everyone. Well, no,
Yeah.
annoys,
She does annoy everyone.
Yeah.
You know, and she's.
I just think it's better for the family unit if everyone's on the same page. Like, I don't know, you want to be in a house where you're arguing about politics?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want someone who thinks differently to me.
That's what we do. We argue about politics all the time. Not with my wife, by the way,
No.
but with Frances,
Yeah,
who's my
we-
work wife.
Yeah.
We think.
I mean, that's fine. I just think, like, I just prefer more traditional relationships. So I just prefer relationships where you're submitting to your husband's authority.
Okay, but that's great.
like, yeah.
You know, sign me up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are lots of women who don't want that. Shouldn't they be allowed to do that?
Yeah, they can. I mean, I can't take away the vote. It's here. But I actually would be okay with, you know what, I've thought about this too, because, you know, I'm like, are women really not going to be able to vote? I feel like the outcomes, my opinion, to be more precise, it's probably that the outcomes would be better if women didn't vote. I'll take one for the team. However, I would be okay with the taxpayer thing, but, you know, where it's like I think it's like only net taxpayers can vote.
Well, that in this country would mean half the country doesn't vote.
Yeah.
Which I'm down. I'm down with.
I just feel like, okay, because if you're voting, okay, if I'm getting free stuff from the government, why would I ever vote against that? Why would I? So then you're just going to get more free stuff and more free stuff. I like it just.
Pearl, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
There's a combination of things going on here.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I actually think some, not all, but some of the things you say objectively are not untrue. And what I mean by that is they're true, right? But also, is there a part of you that's saying them in the way that you're saying them because you're being a bit of a troll? Yeah.
Am I saying them?
The way that you're saying
I
them.
do say things for comedic effect at times.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't say things I don't believe. I change my opinion sometimes. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, but
He
what I
said
mean,
yes. He said no.
he said yes as in just to go along with it. But
Yeah.
no, it doesn't answer my question, because I guess what I'm asking you is, are you saying things in a more incendiary, inflammatory way because you know that gets attention?
You mean like calling women whales?
Yes.
No, I just think it's funny.
Men can be whales too, by the way.
I know.
Yeah. It means something different. But is there
But the men whale, no, okay, I need to say this.
All right.
The
Okay,
men
go.
whales accept their outcomes. They don't complain.
That's
and
true.
that's what I'm sick of.
Well, no, that's not true.
The
What
male
about
whales,
incels?
the male, oh, what percent? Come on. Like, what you're telling me, there's a whole body positive movement.
For
There's
men.
a whole
No, fuck that.
you're telling me it's the same. Like, but this is the other thing we have in society. See, he did it. It's like whenever we talk about anything with the women, the automatic reaction, but men.
Yeah.
But men, like it's like a pattern that I noticed. And yeah, because the men whales, they accept their outcomes. They know they're not getting laid. They know they're not doing shit. The women, they whine. I'm just like, stop whining. You chose to be fat. Yeah.
You know, there's also a double standard in terms of obesity, in that, like, for men, it's okay to, like, I
Also, women are more obese than men. Thank you, in the U.S. anyway. I don't know here, but
we've noticed.
70 to 80% of women are overweight.
We've noticed when we were in the US. But, you know, I used to take the piss out of Francis for being overweight, and that was fine. He's lost weight. And he's a bit miserable now because he doesn't get to eat the food that he likes, but he's healthy, right? I don't think if Francis was female, it would be in any way acceptable for me to sit here and joke about that and for us to have that kind of banter.
Yeah, she couldn't take it. If you no, you can't.
Yeah. But so to go back to the comment, when you said I agreed, what I was saying was, yes, I see your point, but so for instance with Wales, and I'm approaching this from a comedian's point of view, okay, in that I know the language that I use will elicit a particular response, and that word will elicit a particular response. My choice of language will elicit a particular response from an audience member, depending on what button I want to push. Are you as methodical as that?
No. I just say
Can
shit.
you not tell?
Look, yeah, I just say shit I think is funny. I mean, true, right? But funny. And I think it's funny to call them whales. Yeah. And when I call them whales, I'm not talking about, All right, because this is the other thing. Well, what about the nice whales? Okay. Half the whales that I call whales, they call me ugly first. First. And that's what that one girl did, because this is how, I'll tell you how the whale incident started. This is how I started calling women whales. Yeah. Because this woman, the one that attacked me, the whale attack, she was like, I'll have you, you slack. She called me a slack first, so I called her a whale back. So I was like, you're a whale. You're a whale. She started it. I just finished it, Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get on well with women generally, Pearl?
They love me.
A small minority, I imagine.
No, actually, I've always had like girlfriends. So.
Do you know what? I have to say, in your defense, not that I'm agreeing with this, I increasingly do see women, particularly on the right, like Jessica Vaughan, who's a friend of mine on Twitter. I just opened my Twitter, she's like, yeah, women shouldn't vote. I was like,
I just think the outcomes would be better. Like, I feel like if I'm a conservative, so if we took out it would go my way more. Yeah.
It would go, and what is your way? What does that mean?
I'm more conservative.
Okay, but what does that mean?
In the US, Republicans winning.
Okay.
I mean, that is factually correct, by the way.
Yeah, I'm like, personally, I'm like, I think the outcomes would be better for America if it was more Republican. So I'll take one for the team, guys. I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you.
And what does that mean, the outcomes?
The outcomes? Well, one thing I would like to see is the laws change in terms of child custody. I think it should be 50-50, or maybe even take the government out of it. I mean, I'm not like a diehard politics person, to be honest. So I'm pro-life. So I think that would be a better outcome for me, pro-gun.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay a lot of taxes. So take out the taxes, take out the government benefits.
So basically what you're saying is women vote left, and because you're on the right, you'd like women not to be able to vote.
I think the outcomes would be better if women didn't vote, for me.
Yeah.
And also, like, women are just more swayed by like media. So we make 70 to 80% of consumer buying decisions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like women, like, we're just not as logical. Where men go off of like women, we vote based on how we feel. Where men will look at like the pros and the cons of something. So
she's making good points, mate.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we don't even know what we want for dinner. Okay, we don't even know what we want for dinner. You think we should pick the leader of the free world? And they'll be like, well, not all women. Okay. I think I know more successful women than most. Just being in that line of work, I know a lot of women that have done well. I had a pro volleyball contract offered. I know a lot of women in sports that played at the highest level, that have achieved a lot of things. At the end of the day, we're all still women. So I'll take one for the team, guys. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So that being the case, we can all agree that America is right-leaning, more right-leaning than the UK.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm not a diehard politics person.
But I think that's a pretty standard viewpoint. So so why the UK then, Pearl, as opposed to America?
Oh, I'll tell you why. So I didn't mean to end up here. Yeah, I didn't mean to. It was like an accident. So I, before YouTube, was playing semi-pro, or I need to start over. So when I got out of college, I was selling copiers. And I decided that I wanted to play volleyball overseas. I was going to try to get a pro contract. And I was recruited to play volleyball here. So it was a year program to get my master's. And at the end of the year, you hypothetically get a pro contract, which I did, but the YouTube stuff, so I kind of I started the show when I got here, and I didn't expect it to get huge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So then I kind of just got stuck here because I was like, I'd have to move my producer, and it was just, I mean, you know how it is if you guys wanted to move this whole operation. What a headache it would be.
Yeah.
Yes.
So imagine. So I'd have to, I'm like, the voltage converters. So I kind of accidentally ended up here, but I am going to leave eventually.
Are you?
Yeah.
I can see why. I don't think your opinions are that widely shared in this country.
No, they love me here.
Listen, there's something else. I think it's been we call the show trigonometry.
Yeah.
But even by our standards, this has been pretty triggering for a lot of people. However, there's something even more triggering that I do have to ask you about, because in between the time that we booked you to come on the show and you actually coming on the show, you had a guy called Nick Fuentes that you
yeah,
interviewed.
yeah, Nick.
Yeah. And then you did an interview with this guy. Like, this is not a guy we would ever have on because he's a racist, Holocaust denying piece of shit as far as I'm concerned. But you had him on, and then you took that interview down and apologized. So what happened with that whole thing?
Oh, I can't talk too much. There's like legal things going on.
There's legal things going on.
Yeah, there's not with Nick, but just but there's I have a video coming out about that whole thing. So
You do?
you guys have to wait for the video.
Well,
But I will say I did not find Nick to be racist. My staff actually did not find him to be racist.
Wait, he was talking to an Italian girl next to you and saying that she shouldn't have a black boyfriend or something along those lines.
He doesn't believe in. See, I don't really want to go into like the race mixing stuff too much.
No, but you just said he wasn't being racist, and I watched him be racist on your show.
Well, I mean, to me, he says the same things that like there's a lot of people that think like that.
But it doesn't make it less racist just because other people think it.
You could say that, but to me, it's like, how do I put it? His argument is more about culture. It's easier if you date someone in your culture. You'd have to watch the full thing, but was like being a bit like combative to him. And to me, he was just like kidding. But yeah,
He did say, I am a bit racist, even in that. And in fact, in your apology, you said that he said racist things.
Well, there's a video coming out about all of that, but you'll see. It's coming out.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking you is because it's kind of like a big deal that you had this guy on. Do you see what I'm saying? He is incredibly toxic.
I'm just telling you my personal experience with him. We filmed hours and hours and hours of footage with him. There was that one to me, if you watch the full clip, it puts it in a little bit of context. Yeah. But he was really polite. He showed up on time. Like
He also
and honestly, he did a panel and he spoke about his opinions on race mixing, and a lot of people agreed with him.
Okay, but that doesn't change whether it's racist or not, right? But what I'm getting
Do you think it's racist to like, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Do you think it's racist like if I'm Irish and I say I want to date someone that's Irish? Do you think that's racist?
No, but if I say to you, you're Irish, therefore you shouldn't date a black man, that is racist, yeah.
If you're Irish because when he spoke about it on the show, it was more about culture than race.
But to me, that doesn't really work as an argument, Paul. So I'll give you an example. I'm half Latin American. I take after my dad's Irish side. If I date a Jamaican woman, Jamaica and Venezuela have a very similar culture. We're culturally very similar. We have the same food, the same religion, whatever else. So to me, that argument doesn't work. Do you see what I'm saying?
Wait, Venezuela and what?
And Jamaica. So Venezuela's at the top of South America, and Jamaica is all Trinidad, which is literally, you see it over the water.
Yeah, well, it's just, when he was talking about how he wanted to date an Italian woman. Like versus, like he even said he wouldn't want to date a British girl, he'd want to date an Italian woman. So it was like, how is he a white supremacist?
No, he's allowed to date who he wants,
Yeah.
but him telling your Italian friend she shouldn't be dating a black man, that's the racist part, don't you think?
I'd have to remember what he said in the clip, but maybe, yeah, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm asking you, because you do have controversial guests, as we do, and there's nothing wrong with talking to people who are controversial, but Nick Fuentes is a very different kettle of fish, as we say here, right?
Yeah, my opinion is that he was polite overall. He was a good guest.
He was also denying the Holocaust, from what I remember.
Look, I'm not with that. Keep me out of that one. I'm not with the race. Like, that's not my thing. But I just think people are allowed to have their opinions. So if he has crazy opinions, let him have his opinions. And I think he should be allowed to talk about it on a podcast.
But isn't it also the duty, Pearl, of the person interviewing them to push back on those opinions when they come up and actually challenge them and investigate them and to basically push back on it?
Yeah, I mean, we could do another show where we push back more. It's not the end all be all.
But surely isn't that the risk? Isn't that?
I wanted to do like one with Dr. Umar, but he didn't want to come. Sad.
Who's Dr. I don't know who that is.
Dr. Umar has like the same opinions as Nick. Like he doesn't believe in race mixing too. He's just black.
Yeah.
That's like a common,
Yeah, there are some people who believe that, sure.
Yeah.
But you know, when you were talking about the Holocaust with him, he was saying it's like slavery, it got embellished, and you were sort of going, I can see your point. And that's what I found a bit confusing, because Then in your apology, you said, well, I wasn't really educated on these things. But it sounds like you're kind of taking that back now.
There's a statement coming out on everything, so you guys just have to wait for it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
From our perspective, we're kind of saying to you what we thought you might have said to him, which is if a guest says or does something controversial, you kind of want to ask and find out why they've done that. And we have to by the way, if this is coming across as confrontational, that's not the intention at all, because whenever I see a guest not be challenged enough on someone's show, I often think there, but by the grace of God go I, because we've had people on the show who've said controversial things and I've sort of missed the moment and I kind of didn't challenge them enough and I felt bad about it afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, because you're not a political person, you might not. There was a guy called Darren Grimes who had a guy called Dr. David Starkey on, and he said something about how, of course, slavery wasn't genocide, otherwise there wouldn't be so many damn blacks in the West, right? And that got picked up by all the media and they all had to go at him. And I just saw a fairly young, inexperienced interviewer in Darren failed to challenge someone who he looked up to and respected on what was just a bad phrasing more than anything, right? So I totally understand why you may have missed something or not have jumped in on something that you maybe felt that you should have jumped in on. But the reason that Francis and I would never have Nick Fuentes on is precisely because he says all that shit all the time. So if you were to actually challenge him on some of his abhorrent views, you'd spend the entire 3 hours doing that.
Did you watch the full video?
I watched some of it, not the full video. Yeah.
Okay. I did challenge him at points of it.
Okay, well, tell us about that.
Tell us.
I mean, we had a whole panel on race mixing.
Yeah.
And we had, that was why he came out. The political stuff was just because he was there. So I did a one-on-one as the reason I brought him on was I saw him on No Jumper, talking about race mixing. And I've heard that point of view, but it's usually not, people look different that have that point of view usually. So I've heard it, but I've just never heard it like that, I guess. So we just brought him on a panel just about race mixing, and they did a whole panel on it.
But then he was denying the Holocaust.
That was crazy. That was.
But that's what he does. That's why I'm asking you.
Well,
why...
but we brought him on to talk about race mixing. That's what we brought him on, because it's a relationship show, and then we just interviewed him because he was there.
But there will be people, Pearl, who will say, well, if you're going to bring that person on, and look, again, this isn't to, misrepresent or do any of those types of things. The reason we have this show is so we can talk and have honest conversations, because part of this is for me to clarify my thinking about different issues. That's why we do the show. But part of it is also when you bring someone on, you can't also ignore that element of it. Do you see what I mean?
I just don't know what you mean by ignore.
No, because if you're not addressing the fact that he's a Holocaust denier, then you're ignoring that. Do you see what I mean?
I mean, I don't agree that the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying.
That's reassuring. Yeah, good.
I mean, I was just listening to him.
Yeah.
And I think you're allowed to listen to people that you might not agree with. And I think as women, we're more agreeable than men. So a lot of times you might take it as me agreeing. But no, I didn't.
Well, you did say, so it's kind of like slavery, it's been embellished.
I was talking about how people use atrocities to control people. And I was quoting Thomas Sowell, who's a black author, who said the same
I'm a
thing.
big fan of Thomas Sowell,
Yeah, so I was quoting Thomas Sowell and speaking about his ideas if people watch the full interview.
Yeah.
And I said that in the interview.
Yeah. Well,
and I was talking about how people use an atrocity to control people.
Yeah. So, but you don't think that's what happened with the Holocaust?
It sounded like it based on what he was saying, but
he's a well-known Holocaust denier. Of course, it would sound like that.
That's where I was feeling.
Sorry,
let me finish. At the time, that's what I was talking about. It sounded like some of Thomas Sowell's ideas, but do I think that the Holocaust didn't happen? No, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, I guess what do you think your responsibility is when you bring on controversial guests onto the show? Do you have any responsibility? What do you believe?
For the guests?
No, not for the guests. For the content that you put out, Pearl.
Yeah, I'm responsible for all the content I put out.
You're responsible for all the content that you put out. And do you now look at that and think you shouldn't have done that? You made a mistake. You made an error.
I don't regret having someone controversial on. If I had to do it again, I would have maybe had someone on the opposite end of the argument that could push back. But how I probably would have did it if I had to do it again, one full interview with both of them, let them talk, let them say what they're going to say, and then bring them together.
So who would you have on the other end? So you'd have
Dr. Umar.
but those are two people who share the same the same viewpoint. It's just one happens to be white, one happens to be black. That's not that's playing. Do you see that's kind of identity politics?
Well, yeah, but then we did a whole panel with people that disagreed with him, so we did do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm a bit confused about is you did a whole apology, but it sounds like you're
stop
not.
asking me about this. Like I said,
It kind of matters.
I have a statement coming out about it. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll leave it to your statement.
Yeah.
Listen, we always wrap up the show with the same question we ask all our guests, which is, what's the one thing you think we're not talking about that we really should be?
Men's issues. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate, or happy to leave it there?
No, I would just say like men. I just think men not getting custody of their kids. I think that is an issue that nobody talks about.
Okay, sweet. Well, Pearl, thank you very much. Where can people find you online?
Just Pearly Things. So you can look up Just Pearly Things on YouTube.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you very soon with another brilliant interview like this one. Probably won't be quite like this one, or a raw show. Take care and see you soon.
And for those of you who like your trigonometry on the go, it's always available as a podcast. Take care and see you soon, guys. What do you think of